Okay, I'm back for the second half of the 851 review. Let me just reset my clock here to make sure I'm good. Okay, so the last thing we talked about was machine guarding. It's one of the favorite things for administrative labor inspectors to see. And again, we call them nip hazards, but it's not a nip. If you get nipped by something, it could drag your arm into the machine. So let's call them getting pulled into the machine hazards because they are that horrific, right? So if the machine came with a guard on it, it's prescribed. That means it has to be in place. If you bought the wrong machine, get another machine. Sometimes equipment purchased outside of Canada doesn't come with the required guarding. You got to make sure that that happens. To make sure you've got the right ones guarding on the machine based on RCSA standards for machine guarding. Talk to ProSafe Engineering in Stratford, Ontario. Ask for Miles, the president of the company. He can help you out. Okay, we're on to material handling. So this is picking up stuff with the equipment or your bare hands, right? Most orders under the Regulation 851 involve a little bit of material handling, which includes items that have tipped over, that have collapsed, that are falling. And when workers see a pile of stuff tipping over, their natural reaction is to grab for it, to try to save it, and that can put them in a lot of danger. So when you're lifting, carrying, moving, or storing items, they can't hurt the individuals that are around them, okay? If you got a compressed cylinder, we move them on a proper dolly with a chain on them. I think a lot of us have seen suppliers coming in, rolling these cylinders, compressed cylinders on the ground. This must be avoided at once. That would be considered a dangerous circumstance that have to be stopped immediately. In addition, when the item must be removed, just ensure that the entire pile won't come tumbling down. So if you're going to stack something up, like that game where you pull pieces out, we don't want things to come tumbling down. And also storage of round cylindrical fabric, plastic, rolls of plastic. Think about putting 5 down on a skid, putting 4 on the next layer, 3, 2, and some wedges in there to stop it from rolling off, okay? So you got to think about that. If material is free-flowing, like in a grain or a silo, workers who enter the confined space need to be protected against that. Providing a mechanical advantage works really well too. So that's a simple dolly or a cart or a lift table or something else that helps the worker lift or move the material. We want to keep records, daily inspections and repairs of all of these maintenance, all these lifting devices that we use, lift trucks, cranes, you name it. And I always have a copy of that ready to go if the ministry asks you for that. And only permit competent individuals, authorized individuals that you've put through the testing to operate these things. You also have to have a practical skill evaluation on pretty much any piece of machinery. It would be a good idea to do that. The PSC's practical skill evaluations are mostly for the equipment like bobcats or skid steers, cranes, aerial work, elevated work platforms, and that kind of thing. And when we're up in the air, one of the things you got to make sure of when you're moving around equipment and stuff, if there's live power up there, we have to stay about at least minimum of 3.5 minimum of 3.5 meters away from live power. Lifting devices like your elevated work platforms, known brands like Skyjacks or Genies, like I mentioned, they would have to be, they're probably going to, administrative inspectors are probably going to ask for the annual certification tag on the equipment, and they're also going to ask for your daily inspections. Okay, next category, maintenance and repairs. So make sure the building fixtures are not damaged to the extent of possible collapse. To prevent access in and out of areas is really important as well too. So a sticky door is really important to get fixed. Portable ladders, let's go with that. For maintenance repairs, they should be stored and used properly. If they're defective, tag them as out of service, cut them down the middle of the rungs and throw them out, or recycle the material if it's metal. Do not put the ladder in the garbage as it is, because someone will grab it and take it with them. When making repairs, make sure that you don't put workers in harm's way. And also, one of the things about making repairs, sometimes we have to turn off the power. We call that lock out, tag out. So making sure that we have all the energy sources, I think there's 7, 8, 9 different energy sources, making sure that they are completely drained. Another one here is, and when repairing drums and tanks that might have an internal pressure, don't cut into a sealed steel 55-gallon drum that you just have a flammable liquid in it, because it probably has fumes and you're probably going to get ignited. Okay, next important one would be the PPE or personal protective equipment. So don't allow employees to bring in their PPE from home. I've heard many stories where they do, we don't catch it in time, and somebody gets hurt. Don't allow employees to decide when and where and how they're going to use it. That's not their choice to make. It's your choice to make as the employer, right? Don't make PPE the first choice of protection, because it's the last layer that can protect you. So let's say for a respirator, The only thing we have after the respirator, if it's not fitted properly, is your nose hairs, the cilia in your throat, the snot, or mucus we should say, in your throat. I mean, that's natural, your skin is a natural protection. We want to try to control the hazards as far away from the worker as possible, like buying a less harmful welding rod, let's say. So if you hand out PPE, the manufacturer's instructions should go with your training. So the most important thing that you do is having proof of training of use of that. So the 4 words that we'll keep in mind are selection, care, use, and maintenance. I'll say it again. Selection. You have to tell me, if I'm an inspector, why you selected that PPE, how they're going to care for it, how we're going to maintain it, and how it's going to be used when and where. Okay? A few more things about PPE, making sure that rubber gloves do not get caught in something rotating, like an operator that had an air gun, an air socket gun, and it caught the end of the rubber glove, it wrapped around and pulled the finger right out of the socket. That was a bad story. PPE programs must, again, talk about selection, care, use, and maintenance of it. Lead by example. So if we bring in a guest, make sure that they have their PPE on going into those areas. The worst thing we can do for health and safety is bring in a guest and not make them wear their steel toes when everybody else has to wear them, right? People see that. So watch your visitor policy. Make sure you have a sign in and sign out policy. In regards to women wearing men's PPE, to steal a phrase from an article I saw in a magazine earlier this year, don't just pink it and shrink it. So coveralls are not going to fit the same as they fit a man if you try to give them to a woman. So think about that. At every opportunity, try to get something that fits, especially your fall arrest harnesses. That's what I see often, is not the proper fall arrest harnesses for females. Okay, buildings. First off, follow the building code, the fire code, electrical code, all that good stuff. Make sure your visitor policy is working. You have people can go in and out. Again, that connects to our fire safety plan we talked about earlier. The next thing about your building is storing of your WHMIS chemicals, to make sure that if they have to be in a storage room, to have a separate room for that has proper ventilation, right? Industrial hygiene, another good favorite of mine, study of noise, light, vibration, and airborne contaminants. So eye wash bottles, they're only good for a nuisance dust. They're not good enough for continuous flow of 10 to 15 minutes that a lot of the chemicals say we require in the safety data sheets. You know, you're not going to get 10 to 15 minutes out of a couple eye wash bottles. So make sure if you need a deluge shower, I always say that wrong, the chemical shower, if it says it in the SDS sheet, safety data sheet, make sure that you have that available. Okay, when removing debris from the workplace, don't create more of a mess by spreading it all over the place, especially airborne contaminants. What else do we have? Exposure to biological, chemical, or physical agents require proper training in the handling, use, and storage of that, and the proper PPE and the emergency procedures. Don't let employees eat in areas where chemicals are being used or stored. Clean and disinfect the shared PPE, such as your air purifying respirator. And one final note on regulation 297 now. That was all 851 stuff that they're going to be. 297 is about occupational health and safety awareness training for your new and young workers and your supervisors as well. And I can help you with that if you're interested. So one of the most common things is there was no awareness training done for supervisors or new or young workers, no records of the training at all. So that's important. Final words. I mentioned mentioned these at the close of part 1, but these are good points to reiterate. Number 1, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. Write down what you want to prove to the inspector. While controlling hazards, don't inadvertently put in a new hazard, like an ergonomic mat as being a trip hazard when we're trying to solve an existing one. Number 3, just because we're doing things the way we're doing it now, it doesn't mean we're safe. I always check to make sure it is the safest way. And number 4, I call that mindset, since we've had little or no safety issues, we won't have them in the future. And you probably know as well as I do that that's not going to happen, that's a mistake, right? If you want to visit my website, www.hasco.ca, that's HASCO.ca. If you want to call me, 1-855-HASCO-CA, the same thing, clever, eh? Which is 1-888-427-2622. Call me or email me at marty@hasco.ca. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day. Be safe out there. Bye now.